Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today, we are thinking about holistic alignment for men. That is a thinker. And luckily, I have Michael here who's going to help us think about this in a whole new way. So, thank you so much, Michael, for coming onto my show and sharing your time. I'm really excited to speak about this with you, to pick your brain. So, when you hear those words, holistic alignment for men, what does that make you think about?
Hey, well, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I've really been looking forward to this. I know we've had it on the books, for a little bit. So, I had the countdown clock running. But, you know, uh, guys are inherently lazy. It's whether you agree or disagree, but and kind of follow the path of least resistance in their life, right? And so kind of what I found is guys more than again, I'm not trying to overgeneralize, right? But I think women do a lot better job about being in touch with the key domains of their life and how those domains stay in alignment, right? And they've got, I think, also women have much better circles of not just friends, but of advisors, right? So it could be their friends, right? But who they have a much better varied circle of people around them, right? Who they can turn to for advice, people who've already experienced what they're experienced than guys do. And so
Yeah.
for men, certainly for myself in my life, right, over time, and for guys I work with in the coaching space, right, they end up and they get to a point where they're out of balance or out of whack because they over kind of emphasize one aspect of their life at the expense of a lot of others. And they get to a point where they're kind of confused. Um, they start to distract themselves with bad habits or with
Yeah.
you know, with which kind of going down the wrong paths. And, it really just helps them kind of get back in tune, right? Because if you're out of balance in one area of your life, like, I mean, say, like, I'm not a chiropractor, right? But if you were a chiropractor and you're out of balance in one part of your back, you're favoring that side, you end up being out of balance somewhere else in your body because now your knees out, right? Because on the left side,
Yeah.
because you're favoring your right side of your back. And what does a chiropractor do? They help get you in alignment. You don't go forever. You go for a handful of sessions to get you back on track and give you some tools to make sure maybe that doesn't happen again. So that's
Yeah.
what I think about when I think about like holistic alignment for men is like thinking about everything versus let's just get your job back on track or let's just get your relationship back on track. It's like getting all those together.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I think you touched on a lot of good points because when you try to compare it between men and women, you do kind of realize that women do end up having like a group of circle, group of advisors, people that they can trust and they rely on to give them a certain piece of advice depending on what's going on in their life. If they know they can't go to Susie, they can go to Sarah or they can go to Melissa, they can go whoever. And I think men, they really don't have that. They don't have that knit group. I mean, yeah, sometimes you can see it with specific men. They'll have their childhood friend and they'll be friends forever, or their neighbor and they were friends forever. You know what I mean? They keep that tie, but sometimes, and a lot of the times, men really don't have that unit to really go to, and they're kind of just figuring it all out on themselves. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure and burden men put on themselves. And then when you were talking about sometimes they go out of balance and they go in the wrong directions, I mean, like, I can see that, because they don't have this group to go to advise them or to help them with their state of mind. So they feel like they have to do it on themselves and they're going to do the route that's the easiest, like you're
Hmm.
talking about, or and sometimes it's probably destructive or not the best route, or
Right.
you know what I mean? Or they go towards a group of people that just don't have their best interest in hearts, especially in young men's teens years. They go to the wrong
Hmm.
crowd. They get into drugs. You know what I mean? That downhill spiral. So when you talked about, like, in reference to a chiropractor and how they seek alignments and how they're just trying to line you up, and they give you a couple ideas and to help fix your posture, fix certain things that around you. And I think that's beautiful because I think men need to realize that they have the right to align their frame of mind and their whole well-being just like a woman does. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I don't think that
Yeah.
this is talked about a lot because of whatever reason that men aren't supposed to care, or you know what I mean? It's so weird
Yeah.
when
Agreed.
when I really speak to men. Like, I don't know why this isn't talked about. Like, I don't know why men aren't allowed to speak about their emotions. I don't know why men aren't allowed to just be honest with what they're feeling or just be honest with other people. So I guess I have to ask you, where when did this taboo or this stigma really come into play where men are supposed to just be like a rock of a wall, you know what I mean? Like, they're
Yeah,
just supposed to be
yeah,
like some brick, yeah, that
lone
holds it
wolfing
all
it.
together.
Yeah,
Exactly, that lone wolf mindset.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's nature versus nurture, right? Some of it's like hardwired in. I'm not saying that's right. Um, where guys have trouble asking for help, right? Again, I'm not, like this is sort of like an old school stereotypical thing. It's like, a woman would ask for, this is like back in the 50s, right? Guys will ask for directions now, but like, just ask your phone, hey Siri, how do I get to the gas station? Hey
Yes.
ChatGPT, what's the fastest route? But where a woman would stop and ask directions, the guy'd rather drive around for 3 hours versus asking anybody for help, right? And so,
Yeah.
a lot has changed over the years. But at the end of the day, I think I don't know why this is, but men are embarrassed to talk
Mhm.
about their feelings in most cases. And it's back to, you mentioned this earlier. So back to that circle of people that you let be around you, right? And I think guys are much more apt to let people have, and sometimes you get the wrong people in there, like an all access pass to them, right? To influencing them, being around them, to partying, to the habits, etc. Right? And they're very, I think guys are very. I'm a guy, right? It sounds like I'm talking bad about guys, but I think this is something that if you're aware of it, right, you can overcome it. Guys are
Yes.
much more apt to be influenced than females. No, can females be influenced? Yes. Can they have bad circle of friends around them or people not their best? Of course, right? But again, compliment to women, I think that they are much better at sniffing out the bullshit, right? And like what people's true intentions are than guys are, right? I mean, you know, my wife will tell me, like, I don't know about that guy, or I don't know about that woman, or I don't know about that situation. Like, are you sure? And she does it in a supportive way. I'd be like, no, 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 it's going to be great. She's like, I don't know. And then down the road, I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't really think they were really kind of looking out, for me. So, but where did it come from? I mean, it's kind of the age, as and the oldest time, right? Is that that's how guys are. So I think men who are more apt to speak about their feelings or to ask for help, to seek out counsel, you know, like the right people to help them who've already been where they got to go, or they know that person's already solved that problem. Hey, how did you solve it? How can I get off doing this or that? How can I get out of this? What should I do? Right? Those are probably the people who've been raised in families or have happened to have a friend who, is into that, right? Again, guys are usually influenced. So if they're around people and they're just lucky, luck of the draw, think about like coaching, right? If you never thought about this, but you or your best friend loves Tony Robbins and they go to Tony Robbins conferences, maybe you go to an event with them. You probably wouldn't have gone on your own. Maybe you get a ticket, you go to an event. And then you're like, maybe it speaks to you, right? You're like, I love this sort of stuff. And so you start getting into self-improvement. And then you start kind of reading more about it. And he's like, you know what? I should get a coach. Or, I want to start a business. Why would I start this business on my own? Why would I ask my friend, my best buddy, like your friend from high school, your friend from college, or your childhood friend? Why ask them? Because they're a loser, right? They work at the bowling. No, they're a loser working at the bowling, but they work at the bowling alley. What do they? That's cool. They love it. That's their life. What do they know about starting this med spa business? They don't know. They don't know shit about it. Let me go find somebody online because it's got the whole world wide web now, right? The whole world open to you. Let me go find somebody who starts med spas and see whether or not I could work with them. Like, may I go to work for them at a med spa to learn? And they may be like, listen, I don't mentor people. Guess what? You can do a Google search or a ChatGPT search right now, and you can find, just like me, an online coach who's expert at starting businesses. And one of their focus areas would be med spas or in the health space. You go hire them for 3 months or 6 months. You will exponentially accelerate your path to opening your business. So the point of that just example is there are people out there who can help you regardless of what your problem is if you're just willing to ask for the help. And that's where, you know, I think guys have a long way to go to evolve. But when they do ask for help, they can, and they start to experience that in their life, they start to see like, wow, maybe I should just do this all the time. And I think that helps them in their relationships, helps them in
Yeah.
business, right? Helps them in their fitness, et cetera.
Yeah, to be honest, when you were talking, it really made me realize it really does come down to how people will grow up and what they were seeing growing up.
Hmm.
Because even for women, I think it's the same way. If you're taught to do things on your own, you're taught to not depend on anybody, you're gonna grow up thinking I can't depend on so and so, I can't ask for this help, I can't do
Hmm.
this, you know what I mean, without that I have to do it all by myself. So I think it just comes down to just letting go of those old beliefs and just really knowing what serves you in this time frame. Like maybe when you were 7, it served you not to ask for Joe, the one that likes to burn things on fire, you know what I mean? Not to hang out with him, you know what I mean? That makes sense, you know what I mean? But when you're older, you have to really start recognizing where these thoughts come from.
Hmm.
Where are they? Where did they really even begin? Because if you are still holding on to something that was told to you when you were 7 and you're 38, you know what I mean? It's time for you
Right.
to recognize it's time to evolve. It's time to find this new way. And I think finding a coach, finding other people outside of your area or outside of your circle or just outside
Hmm.
of your range of knowledge, I think is very important because it allows you to realize what's possible and it allows you to see things from a different perspective. And I think that's the biggest thing is allowing our minds to constantly be shifting. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
that's
if
true.
you see like a ball in like two little brackets, it can, if depending how tight those brackets are, that ball's not going to be moving. But if that there's enough space for the ball to constantly moving while the brackets are holding it in place, then you can see the full rotation that that ball is doing. And that's kind of
Mhm.
how like men's minds needs to kind of be, because you are constantly putting into positions where you have to protect, you have to oversee, you have
That's
to
right.
fix, you have to, you know what I mean? You have to have the finance, you have to always be unaware 24/7, especially if you have a family, you know what I mean? Because then
Right.
now you're like, oh, protective mode.
For
No one's
sure.
gonna
Yeah.
come for my family. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
I I totally understand that when it comes to um men and really taking that step for themselves, they really have to know that what they're doing is right. Because when you're talking about how your wife used to tell you like, I don't know about that guy, or you know what, this job is really not for you. Like, I'm with you because I said the same thing to my husband just a couple weeks ago about his job. And you know what I mean? We really, and we're not even there, but I already know, you know what I mean? Like, I already know. So it's like, women, we just have this different understanding of perceiving and moving through life
Hmm.
because we were always told to always pay attention. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
when we were young, we are more vulnerable to get attacked and we are more vulnerable to be misled and all these other things as well. But for men, I don't ever hear the sayings of watch your surroundings, pay attention. It's always boys will be boys. So I feel like there's
That's true.
the biggest difference. So because like adults just allow the boys to just do whatever they do. So if they fall, okay, let them fall, let them get hurt, let them do this, but they never were really taught to pay attention and watch your surroundings and to make smart choices. And that's one thing that I do with my sons. I was like, make smart choices. Think about it. Like they're so young and they don't really fully understand, but I am embedding it to them now at their 2 and 3, and I'm still embedding it to them. Make smart choices. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't, but it's okay. I still love them.
I love
Well,
that.
I have to ask you, what really made you step into this holistic medicine and this care for yourself?
Yeah. So, you know, I think, everybody goes through phases in life. So I think, everybody can think about this differently. And it doesn't mean your life's over at 80, but I think about kind of life and for guys, just everybody, but especially for guys in 4 parts, right? It's uh, really kind of getting born to 22, right? So because if you go to college, you're out of college around 22. If you don't go to college and you're working, then you've got your first 3 or 4 years in working, right? And you probably then look up and go like, was this what I thought? Whatever, right? So you're at a kind of you're at a point whether you're just finishing school, do you go on to do more school? Do you go get a job? Do you travel? If you don't
Yeah.
go to college and you decide to get right out there, which like a lot of people, more and more people are doing today because of AI and because of being able to do stackable credentials. You don't need to go get 4 years. You can learn what you need to know and just go out and make some dough, right? So, so you're 22. Then you kind of 22 to 42, right? That's regardless of what path you took, that's when you're out learning more about yourself. You're growing. If you're in a traditional career, you're like killing it at work and you're getting promoted, you're getting married, maybe, moving in with somebody, maybe you're buying a house or a condo, maybe you don't, right? Whatever your deal is, you know, changing cars, you're going, there's a lot of firsts, right? A lot of firsts, maybe babies, right? Right? Got 2 and 3 year old. So there's that big thing. Then you're gonna go 42 to 62, right? And now you're gonna retire 62, but like the next 22 years, and obviously 62 to 82. Hopefully 62 to 82, like you figured it out. And those are the 20 years you're not gonna screw up, right? Um, so when I kind of think about what kind of got me into it, like, I kind of look back on those times and I got into, kind of into that next phase, late 40s, early 50s. And I'm like, wow, there's got to be something else to this, right? And, I started
Yeah.
kind of get out of balance on stuff. And I started doing more reading and more self-improvement therapy, really started to see a lot of the motivational self-improvement, like life business type coaches. And it really spoke to me. And I said, you know what, I want to work back with a plan. So I actually worked with a coach. I want to have a plan to actually do this, what I'm doing now. So how am I going to get there, right? Because when you have a lot of responsibilities, like if your husband came home and said, whatever he does, right? I'm doing this, and I want to go do that. And you'd be like, you may say, okay, cool. Maybe you sell him that, right? But you're doing this, right? We have a couple kids. Yep.
Yeah.
That's not going to make any money for a little bit. Like, how are you going to get there? You can't just do that tomorrow. Sorry. You,
Mhm.
you have this other
Mhm.
stuff going. But you could have a plan to get there, right? And you could have
Mhm.
what are you going to do to get there? How are you gonna focus your time, right? People, oh, I don't have any time. I got a family, I got kids, I got a wife, got guys will say this, right? Oh, well, but you do. Maybe you watch less TV. Maybe you do less of this. Maybe you do less of that. Maybe you get up an hour earlier. Cope with 1 hour less sleep because you can spend an hour a day working toward this goal. That's going to actually help fulfill people. Uh, so I put a plan in place to actually get to a point where, I could do this. And what I would encourage is, just as a kind of a follow on to kind of the question is what I would encourage people to do, you with your kids, like we have a 17-year-old son, he's going to be senior high school this year. He's looking at colleges. And, I didn't have the circle in my circle when I was growing up is don't focus on the profit, focus on your purpose and your passion, right? Like what really like, so we've said to our son is, he's interested in certain things. We're like, we would like you to have a 4 year experience, like degree, because we think that experience is good experience, right? Living on your own, making decisions, critical thinking skills. You learn something. But and if he said to us, if he say he does, he's going to do. He'd be like, cool, cool. Then what are you going to do, right? So I think one is ensuring the kids are really going down their own path, right? Men or women, boys or girls, right? Going down their own path versus being forced into college or not into college. But if that's the case, unless they've got, I don't know how you know at 17 or 18 what you want to do, is really focus on experience. And so fast forward, that's, when I kind of work with guys, typically they've reached some spot, a snag in their life. Their marriage isn't going what the way they thought, or they're really out of shape. And again, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not, a doctor. I'm not a relationship counselor. But what I can say to them is, I've been through a lot of these things, right? Been through a divorce. I've been through, job changes. I've been through starting businesses. I've been doing what I do now. I mean, I can help them pinpoint where they're out of balance, right? Where they're out of alignment. Because
Yeah.
sometimes they're like, I'm bored at my job. It really turns out they're really bored at their job. They've got something elsewhere in their life, or, you know, their marriage is great. Their relationship with their kids is great. I mean, they're a super dad, super husband, super son, super man, right? But they are bored at work and they're doing stupid shit at work, right? Or they're just and they're distracted, right? It's like
Mhm.
a lot of people's like, I gotta get another job. It's like sometimes I help people figure out that regularly they can reinvent themselves in the job they have without having to give up all the relationships they built, all their track record as a great performer. But other times it's like, yeah, you're right. You've outgrown this company. They can't keep up with what you're doing and promote you fast enough. You need to make a leap somewhere else. But now let's talk about what that is. And well, is this an opportunity to actually make leveraging what you know, but actually to be happier because you're doing something more fulfilling to you versus just keep doing the same thing. Like I got to get a job, I'll get another $20,000, but we want to go buy a new house, whatever that is. All that's good stuff. like having guys stop for a minute to be more aware. Where again, I don't think guys like to ask for help, and typically the people that are connected to their wife or they're connected to their other friends, and they're like, I don't want to talk to so and so about this because I haven't even formed this thought because my friend Joe over here, you know, tell him don't tell anybody. He's going to tell his wife. He's going to tell my wife, or he's going to tell tell Bob. He's going to tell our friend Joe. Joe, I know is judgy. So I mean, guys are lack of trust probably, and also because they've been burned because
Right.
they're men just don't keep their mouth shut. Guys say they're a vault, they're not a vault, right? So you got to go talk to somebody who doesn't know anybody. So you can just be open, right?
Oh, absolutely. I love that because I say that all the time. Guys can gossip as much as girls can. Guys can feel that lack of trust just like girls can. And I don't think it's about sex. It's about mainly that inside, you know what I mean? Where do you feel safe? You know what I mean? And men, they know
Mm-hmm.
where they feel safe and they know that where they don't feel safe. And when they feel safe, they are going to open up. They are going to express themselves. They're going to be honest and open. And you're right. Sometimes having a complete stranger that doesn't know your inner circle or doesn't really know what's going on, they can probably give you that outsider's perspective that you're kind of looking for, because sometimes when you go to your wife, she's going to be like, oh, well, what about the family? What about us? What about this? You know what I mean? Then that pressure goes right back on the husband where it's like, well, that means I'm stuck. You know what I mean? And we, at the end of the day,
Yeah,
we don't want our men to feel stuck because as women, we know how it feels to feel stuck. So that's why one thing I always do and I always make sure of is that I never put my own needs or my family needs in front of my husband's mental state of mind. Because at the end of the day,
right.
if I
That's great.
really I could handle it. I could figure it out. I can do whatever I got to do to make sure that the family's running and moving, but at the end of the day, I only get one of him. There's only one of him in my life. So because there's only one of him, there's no duplicates, there's no clones, there's no extras. I got to make sure that his mental state and his heart is up to date and it's okay. So that's how
I
I
love
go
that.
about it. And I think a lot of women do need to do that because men deal with a lot of pressures outside of the family dynamic as well. And I think when we put that into consideration that they're just a human being just trying to evolve and move through life, then they will look at their husband in a different manner. That they're not just some paycheck, they're not just some person to put the pictures on the wall, you know what I mean, or fix the door when it's loose or it's
Right.
squeaking, you know what I mean. They're a human being and what they do and say matters. And I think when I switched my perspective in that way, my relationship with my husband, it flourished. And the way that I deal with my sons also changed as well because I remember that they're just humans and they're evolving. And it's just about redirection, you know what I mean, and having that. And man, I feel like we can continue on talking on about this for hours on end, Michael. I am truly enjoying this perspective, but time is catching up to us. So what
Yep.
can be some lasting words that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
Sure. Again, by the way, I love all the stuff that you just shared. I mean, you clearly, are into this, space and, thinking about these things as a lucky guy, right? Yeah, his mental state and his heart, right? Keep that all, lined up and keep that in mind. I would just say, um, just to leave people with is regardless of your age. Like I typically work with people who are 40 plus guys, mostly because that's around the time in their 40s where guys go, what's going on? Like I'm feeling bored or guys get bored. That's a bad thing for a guy to be bored, right? So, if you're a guy, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with your circle of friends or with your spouse or significant other, but go find somebody to be a mentor, right? I do a 6 week program. There are people who want to say 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. You don't need a long time, but go talk to somebody to have them help you figure out, kind of your plan, right? And if it's something that's where you need mental health counseling, then don't be afraid to go see a therapist, right? Because again, I don't do therapy. Sometimes the work I do with guys leads to me saying like, I think you should probably go work with a therapist on this because you need to go deep in this issue um, versus these other things. At the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with asking for help. And and find somebody who's already done what you want to do. That's the last thing. Guys will often, and I want to just kind of circle back to my bowling alley, my thing, because anybody's listening to this might be like, why is this guy not like bowling? People work at bowling house. My point is like, if I wanted to open a bowling alley, I'd go talk to my buddy who works at the bowling. Like, tell me thing. What's behind the scenes? How could be a better experience? If you were running this place, what would you do? Do you want to team up? Should we, but like, if open a med spa as an example, don't ask the bowling alley guy. Go, if you're like, but my friends don't run med spas, go find one. So I would just encourage people, regardless whether it's a paid coaching thing or somebody's going to be a mentor, when you're going to ask for advice, right, and to share what's on your mind, ask people who've already done it. Because you're asking your buddy on the golf course or whatever, they're going to give you the best advice, but it's based on crap because they haven't done it, right? I don't go ask my fitness trainer about some medical issue. Ask my doctor, right? So get the right person to help you and don't be afraid to do it, right? It's going to make a big difference in your life.
Well, absolutely. You're not gonna ask your landscaper how you should dress when he doesn't know how to dress himself. You know what I mean?
I know,
You're not gonna do that. So it's like common sense. Like you're not gonna ask your dentist if your knee's messed up. Like no, you're gonna go to the right physical
but
doctor that does
that
that.
makes total sense, right? But again, I mean, maybe women do too. Notorious for being like, "Hey, I was just talking to Joe over a beer after we played a round of golf about blah blah blah," and in your right supportive way, right? You should, I'd be like, "So has Joe ever done that? So
Yeah,
how good do you think Joe's advice is? I know he meant well, but like Joe should have been like, hey, I can't really tell you about that because I've never done that. It's like I'm probably not the right guy to ask. But people are there for your friend, and they're going to want to be helpful, so they give you the best advice they can come up with. But like they've never done it. I'm like, hey, I want to open a Dairy Queen. Does Joe ever open a Dairy Queen? No, Joe works at he's a fireman. And what does Joe know about Dairy Queen? Go find somebody who's
exactly.
open. Go find somebody who's done a franchise business. So I mean, you
Exactly.
want to be a fireman? Go talk to Joe, right? So that's my big thing is get the right advice, regardless of what it is, right?
Exactly.
And because your friends mean well, your parents mean well, get the right advice. And finally, always try to, if you can, especially with young kids, encourage them to focus on their purpose and their passion because the profit's
Mhm.
going to, right? People, these celebrity chefs, they didn't start saying like, I want to open a highly profitable restaurant and have a cooking show and cookbooks. What do they say? I just like to cook. And they were so passionate about it, the profit came. I think you can kind of apply the example to anything. And when
Yeah.
people are happiest, their passion and purpose ends up getting aligned with their profit, not focusing on the profit piece first.
Oh, I love that. I love that last little bit that you added in there because I think it really does hold so much value because people get so focused on money. But in reality, if you focus on your passion, if you focus on what really drives you, then like you said, the profit will come when it comes. Don't worry about when it comes.
Yeah.
Just know that it will come. Just let it keep up with you because sometimes time will test you to see if you're consistent because the reason why businesses fail, the reason why dreams fall is not because it wasn't a plausible. It was because they weren't consistent enough to go for it. Like
Yep.
we see it with working out. Like, okay, if you want to be a size 10 and then you're a size 20, what are you gonna do? Take every day as you can and work on it just a little increments and eventually you'll see that size 10 one day. Maybe it won't be tomorrow, won't be the next day, but it will eventually get there. But it's
Yeah.
just that consistency that we really need to remember. Like I even see it in podcasters, you know what I mean? The reason why a lot of podcasters drop out of this podcasting industry is because they're not consistent and they're not seeing the millions of downloads or the millions of views or
Yeah.
millions of likes, and it's like, honey, you're making an impact. You don't see it, but it's okay. Just keep going
Yeah.
and you'll
Keep
eventually see
going.
it. So yeah, and it's about also, like you said, having that discretion. Like if you go into Google and you put in, oh, how do I build a house? And they give you the templates on just how to cook a book. I mean, how to cook in your house instead of actually how to build a house and just how to cook, you're gonna be upset and frustrated. So yeah, it's like having that discretion of knowing where to go is truly holds
Yeah.
so much value. And ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy this conversation as much as I did, go check out Michael. I have access to his website in the description. If you're listening in audio on YouTube, you can find it, click it, boom, goes directly to his website. Oh my goodness, he has such great content, so much good information, and a way for you to reach out to another man so that you can hear and feel and know that you are acknowledged and you're not crazy. I know that sometimes women around you can make you feel crazy, or your other men can make you feel crazy or doubt your dream, but having that outside source like Michael to just give you that understanding that you need, like, no, you're in the right perspective. Let's just shift it a little bit to nudge you. You know what I mean? That's exactly what he's here for, to give you that little extra nudge so that you can keep moving in the right direction. And obviously so that you can continue on thinking. So with that being said, bye.